I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 216, Emotional Sunk Costs. If your husband is struggling with a pornography problem and you want some help with it and you are not finding the resources that you like, you are in the right place. My name is Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach. I am an active member of the LDS faith, and I am the wife of a former porn addict. And on this podcast, I am going to share with you the tools that you need in order to start your healing journey. This is where I'm going to show you how to dive deep into intentional living, how to rekindle connection with your spouse, how to manage all that emotional turmoil that you're feeling, how to break the addiction cycle that you have to your husband's addiction, and tell you all of the ways to do that and start healing. I am so glad that you're here, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Good morning, my ladies. How are you? I hope you guys are having a great day. That was a crazy weekend. I have had my mom in town, my parents came in town, my brother and his wife and kids came in town, and my brother brought a friend and his girls, and it has been so fun. And I know that things have been a little crazy because of what happened with former President Trump, and I have to mention it because I feel like this is kind of a, well, let's hope once in a lifetime and hopefully not once in a lifetime. I hope it doesn't happen that frequently kind of event. And I know that that is affecting everybody and they're thinking about it and it's on the news and you're thinking about it. So I'm right there with you. And I'm just praying for our country, for our leaders, for our future. And I would love to encourage you guys to do the same. And especially praying for the families of the victims that were killed, the man that was killed, and then also those that were hurt, and just pray for our country. So that's been on my mind. And what's also been on my mind, besides all of that, is all of you guys. So next week, I actually saw an ad for this on Instagram, which was pretty cool. I am running a free live one-day event, and it's called How to Solve Your Husband's Pornography Problem. I will put the link in the show notes, but I would love to see you there. I am teaching this. This is a brand new class, webinar, whatever you want to call it. This is a brand new one that I am teaching that has been inspired by a whole culmination of things that I have been teaching over the last couple of months. And I figured out how to reframe this in a way that will help you to stop trying to control his behavior and emotionally exhaust yourself. Because we've all been there, ladies. You have, I have, where we're trying to solve his pornography problem in a way that isn't effective, in a way that it's not working. And yes, I know I teach you on this podcast that you can't change his behavior. But what I'm going to teach you in this class is what you can do. And that's why I really want to encourage you to come. And again, it's free. I'll put the link in the show notes. And that way you can sign up, you can come, you can get the information. You will also be getting a very special offer that I am offering just this one time. And so that's exciting for you too. So please come. Again, it's a live event next Monday, July 22nd. And I would love to see you there. And if you're on my email list, you will be getting more details about it, but I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can sign up. All right, ladies. And last week, ladies, was the Summer Body Confidence Masterclass. It was sensational. For those of you who attended, thank you. It was incredible. The amount of effort, the amount of stuff that we were able to uncover. One of the reasons why I love doing these masterclasses is that even when you listen to the podcast, it's great, it's fantastic, but there is nothing like actually diving deep into a topic in particular and forcing yourself to actually take a look at your thoughts and your emotions and do the exercises that we do live during the class. It's the difference between, listening to a podcast on losing weight versus actually going to a class and actually doing the work in an exercise class. And it was so powerful, and I'm so proud of everybody that showed up, my clients, those of you who came. And so make sure you guys are on my email list so that you know what's coming up in the future when I do master classes. And I have some good ones in mind. So make sure you're on my email list because you'll be the first to know when they come up. All right, I want to talk about emotional sunk costs. And I'm excited about this because I was going back and forth about what I wanted to talk about today. I went over 97 different topics that I wanted to do, and until I hit this one, this is the one that resonated. This is the one that I said, yes, I want to talk about this. And it's been in a note on my phone for months. Okay, so what is a sunk cost. This is actually a financial term, a business term. And the idea is a sunk cost is an expense that cannot be recovered, okay? So it might be that you've invested, $10,000 to market something and it bombed, okay? That's a sunk cost. You can't get that $10,000 back because it failed. Now, the sunk cost fallacy, okay, is associated, if you look it up, it's associated with commitment bias, which means that we continue to support our past decisions despite new evidence suggesting that it isn't the best course of action. Okay, I'm going to read that again. So the sunk cost fallacy, right? So a sunk cost is there's money, there's something that I've invested that I can't get back. And the fallacy is when we have a commitment to that investment. It's when we continue to support our past decision, the decision that was, hey, I'm going to invest in this thing. And even though we know it's no longer working, right? Despite new evidence suggesting that this isn't the best course of action, we are still committed to it because we did it already, right? It's like, well, I already invested this much, then I just need to keep going. And today I want you guys to think about that in terms of emotion. Now, specifically, this might be you thinking about your relationship with your spouse. This might be you thinking about a relationship with another person. It might be you thinking about how much you've invested in your career and you hate it, or you want to change, but you're like, well, I've already gone to school for this. I've already done this much training in this. And then you find out that you don't like it, or there's something else that you want to do instead. And rather than go after that thing that you'd rather do instead, and your brain is saying, I can't do that. I've already invested this much into this thing. I've already spent this much time into it. I'm just going to stick it out. I just have to keep going. Does that make sense? That's a sunk cost. That's an emotional sunk cost fallacy, where we stick with something even though it's no longer working for us because we invested in it already. Okay? So I want to, again, talk about this in terms of your relationship, especially with your spouse. Or it could also be your relationship with thoughts. It could be your relationship with feelings. It could be certain thoughts or emotional processes that you continue. Okay? So bear with me. I know this is not an intro level podcast episode. This is for those of you who have been around for a while. So if you guys are brand new to this, stay with me. Okay? I want you to think about this. Maybe this question will help. Would you make the decisions that you're making today? Would you make them again? The decision to think the way that you do about yourself and your husband. The decision to feel the way that you feel about yourself and your husband. Would you make those again? If you had to wake up tomorrow with the same patterns, would you do it, or would you choose to do something different? Most of us want to do something different. Most of us want a different pattern, a different feeling, a different thought, a different interaction, and yet we think that it just has to stay the same because we've already invested so much. Well, this is just how it is. This is how it's always been. This is what our relationship has always looked like, so it's just going to stay this way. And what I want to offer is that that's not true. Okay? So look at the way that you're approaching the way that you handle your kids, the way that you approach your weight or your marriage or your personal growth. Would you redecide to do it the same way? Would you redecide right now to keep approaching it in the same way? Does that make sense? Okay, let's do another example. Hopefully this will help you out, okay? Let's do a relationship example, okay? So let's pretend that you're in a marriage where there's a lot of contention. I know, hard to imagine, but let's pretend that that's what's going on. When you have a pattern of operating in a certain way, maybe your go-to is to get defensive and angry, and maybe you pick fights. If that is the way that you have been behaving for 15 years or more, then your brain might think that there's an emotional sunk cost. Even though you know that the pattern that you are repeating is no longer producing the result that you're looking for. You still do it because you say, well, that's how I've always done it, so that's just how I'm going to continue to do it. That's what your primitive brain wants to say. Your primitive brain says, this is how we've always interacted. Nothing's going to change. I'm just in it this way. This is just how we interact. And that's an emotional sunk cost fallacy. It's saying, I am going to continue in this even though this isn't producing the result that I want because I invested in it this way in the past. This is an expense that cannot be recovered. We're already too far gone. That is a thought that I hear all the time, and that's an emotional sunk cost fallacy. We're already too far gone. We're past hope. There's nothing that can be done. And that's not true. Let's do another example and see if this clears it up as well. Let's say that you and your husband are struggling in your marriage and you invest in a therapist, and you have been going to this therapist for 6 months or a year or 5 years, or he's been going and doing a certain type of recovery, and it's not producing the result that you're looking for. It's not actually getting you where you want to go. But you're thinking, well, I've already spent $4,000, $8,000, $15,000 on this type of therapy. So I'm already this much in, I might as well keep going. That's an emotional sunk cost fallacy. That's where you're saying, I am committed to this, even though the evidence suggests that it's not working because of how much I've already put in. Does that make sense? And that's an emotional sunk cost fallacy. And that's what I want to offer that we take a look at today. And I want, again, the question that I think is really good and helpful with this is, how are you approaching your relationship? How are you approaching your healing? And is it producing the result that you're looking for? Would you redecide today to make that same investment? Would you redecide if you could start over? Would you redecide to do it that same way? And here's what I want to offer is that what I'm not suggesting in this podcast episode is, I know that there are going to be some of you that are like, wait, are you telling me that I should get divorced? Because I know there are many of you who feel like your marriage is an emotional sunk cost. Now, that is not what I'm saying, because that, I believe, is coming from a misunderstanding of what's possible. Because it's absolutely possible for you to heal. It's absolutely possible for you to go forward. It's absolutely possible for you to have a different relationship with your spouse if you so choose. And if you don't want to choose that, that's entirely up to you, and it's totally fine. Okay? But I'm not saying that everything is doomed just because it's not turning out how you want. What I am saying is that you actually take a step back and you look at what you've invested, and if you're continuing to invest in it simply because you've already invested so much. Does that make sense? It's kind of like saying, okay, well, I've already invested in this program. I paid $3,000 to get into this program. Maybe it's for school or for work, and it's actually not going to get me where I want to go. I hate it. Turns out it's not what I want, but I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep investing in this same path. I'm going to keep going down this same path because I already spent the money up front. Okay? Does that make sense? The reason that this is so damaging is because, ladies, it keeps us stuck. It prevents us from actually trying the next thing. It prevents us from going on to the next thing that actually could work. Instead, we keep reinvesting in the same patterns, in the same behaviors that aren't producing what we're looking for. Again, going back to that example of, let's say, defensiveness, then what it's doing is just creating more of the same. Even though it's difficult to figure out how to move in a different direction, it's absolutely possible. But if you continue on it just because, hey, this is the way that I've done it, I've always done it this way, I don't know how to do it any other way sounds scary to me, that is an emotional sunk cost fallacy, where you're saying, I'm committed to the thing that isn't getting me where I want to go simply because I've already invested in this already. Here's another example. Maybe your past decision was to try to manage your husband's behavior. Maybe it was to try and control as many circumstances and situations as possible to try and prevent him from relapsing. Maybe that was your past decision. And now you're recognizing that this isn't emotionally good for you. There's new evidence suggesting that this is just creating anxiety and overwhelm and distress for you. But when you say, all right, well, I've already done this for so long. This is the only thing that I know. I know it's not working, but I don't know what else to do. Or I've already done it for this long. I'm just going to keep going in. I'm going to double down and just keep doing it even more. That's an emotional sunk cost fallacy. It's saying, even though there's evidence to me that this is not working and producing the result that I'm looking for, I'm just going to keep going because I've already started it this way. Or maybe the other example that just came to my mind was if you decided to be your husband's accountability partner. And at the time, that was exactly what you wanted to do. And so you've invested in this emotionally. You've invested in a certain way with your time, with your the way that you interact, the way that you communicate, with habits that you've set up so that he can do check-ins and things like that. Maybe that's what you've decided to invest in however long ago, but it's no longer working for you. Maybe you're starting to feel really anxious. Maybe you're starting to feel really overwhelmed. Maybe it's changing the nature of your relationship so that you are no longer feeling like his wife, but feeling a little bit more like a police officer, feeling someone like he has to check in with, more like a parent, right? And maybe that's no longer working for you, but you're thinking, well, that's the thing that we decided, and so I have to continue to do it because I decided it in the past. Ladies, I want to offer today that you are allowed to change your mind. Okay? You are allowed to change your mind and decide something different or recommit to whatever you've previously decided. Okay? So here's what I want to offer again that you take a look at. The decisions that you're making today, the way that you are approaching your marriage, your communication, your weight, your children, your relationship with your spouse, your healing, the way that you are approaching your life, is that something you would redecide today to continue in the same way? Because the truth is, any day that you don't decide to do it differently is a day that you're deciding to continue in the same way. You are redeciding every single day to continue the way that you are and have been if you don't change. And most of us don't think about it that way. Most of us think that we're just deciding, right? Or it's like, well, I'm thinking about it. I'm deciding. I'm not sure. It's indecision. We think that indecision is a place between this choice and that one. And the reality is that indecision is actually a choice to stay in the same place. It's actually a choice already. It's a choice to stay exactly as you are rather than make a shift and move. So again, if you're taking a look at this and you want to make a different choice, then a good way to describe it is, or a good way to look at it is, which decision would I regret? Will I regret changing or will I regret not changing? Where is it that I want to go, and is this getting me there? And if not, ladies, cut the ties and make a different choice. Okay? You don't have to continue to be the same way, to interact the same way simply because you chose that when you were 11. You don't need to decide to keep thinking the same things about yourself. You can choose to do it differently. Just because you've always done it this way doesn't mean you can't change now. And I like to always give this example of like choosing to eat healthier. You know, we're always like, okay, I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll start again on Monday. How many Mondays have you guys started over? Right? I have started over so many Mondays. And what I want to offer is that you start over right now, today, this very moment. You don't have to wait until tomorrow. You don't have to wait until Monday. You decide in this moment, and every single moment after it, when your brain goes back to the same patterns, you redecide to do it differently. And is it going to be scary? Totally, because it's different than what you've always been doing. And so your brain is saying, I don't want to do this. This is scary. Let's stay exactly where we are. Because even though where we are is uncomfortable, even though where we are isn't getting us where we want to go, it's what we know. And it feels a lot of guilt for what you've already invested that hasn't panned out the way that you thought that it would. And what I want to offer, ladies, is that all that guilt is coming from self-judgment, and you let it go. And you offer yourself compassion, and you say, I made the very best decision that I could for myself in that moment, and it's not turning out the way that I want, so I'm going to make a different decision for myself in this moment. I'm going to back myself up on it, and I'm going to see if this gets me where I want to go. Because ladies, you only get one life, so do it on purpose, and don't live with regrets, and don't get stuck in this emotional sunk cost fallacy that says, I have to continue doing it the way that I did before, simply because I chose that 4 years ago, yesterday, or 15 years ago. You deserve so much more than that, and it does take courage, but ladies, you guys are so much more powerful and brave than you think you are. I love you ladies so much. Take a look at where you're stuck. Take a look at what you are stuck in, and let's make a different decision to get you where you want to go. I love you ladies so much. I'll see you guys next week on a brand new episode, so take care. All right, ladies, if you enjoyed this podcast, then I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take everything on the podcast and we actually get to apply it in order to transform your life. And I know that that is a big promise, but it's 100% true. On the podcast, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It's like reading a book, an instruction manual via audio on how to ride a bike. And my coaching program is where you actually ride the bike. And that is what creates the transformation. This is what actually enables you to go from point A to point B, to actually create the transformation that you are seeking. If you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you are loving everything, but you just can't see the end from where you are now, then I want to help you. Come work with me one-on-one. I have a lifetime access program, which means it doesn't expire. You come work with me. I will help you every step of the way and work with you personally to make sure that you get where you want to go. I can't wait to see you there. Head to my website today, joleneWynn.com, and sign up.